Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 63. Pare off the rind using a peeler. There's been a recent spate of intimidating text message cases brought up in court. I yanked on his beard. I disclaim any responsibilities for any harm resulting from using this site. I don't expect my own teenage son to regard this ludicrous quartet as heroes to be emulated. The disclaimers added to the end of email are not legally binding. A beach popular with surfers. He was hanged for murder. He has numerous scientific studies disclaiming any link between sugar and obesity. You are a rogue and an embezzler. The financial means to pursue these objectives came from benefactors' bequests. Hey, you old rogue! He claimed 2 witnesses at his trial had committed perjury. A rogue elephant. If you so testify in front of a jury, I will indict you for first-degree murder. You keep soaking in taverns. Lie back and soak up the Mediterranean sun. The project had soaked up over £1 billion. The label will peel off if you soak it in water. You can't apply probabilistic methods to a phenomenon where there is no empirical evidence. He was soaking wet. Empiric antibiotic usually is adequate treatment for an uncomplicated felon. Soak the beans overnight in water. Her hair was coiffed in its usual way. Incidentally, it is illegal for a convicted felon to own a firearm of any type. The parables of Jesus metaphorically break open myths and allow us to reimagine a new world. Incidentally, it was many months before the whole truth was discovered. The infection was discovered only incidentally at post-mortem examination. He complimented Erica on her appearance. Pay me a compliment. She blushed at the unexpected compliment. Her elaborately coiffed hair. He composed another poem on the vanity of worldliness. Both display wisdom and worldliness of much older men. Chaucer drew attention to clerical avarice and worldliness. He tucked his shirt into his trousers. But his vanity, pettiness, and egocentrism exasperated even his closest friends. Summary offenses are usually less serious offenses such as traffic offenses and petty crime. Summary offenses have a maximum penalty of 2 years imprisonment. Using pliers, tuck the wire ends into the hole. Sidebar. Tuck in your shirt. But Porter does not shy away from the pithy language of the street. Today's a special occasion, so tuck in. God endows each person with unique talents and attributes necessary for him to fulfill his task. Your mother had a great tuck-in for us. The air was tainted by fumes from the cars. His reputation was tainted by scandal. His family honor had been tainted. He had been an ardent supporter and endower of the Abbey, and is fitting that he should be buried here. To eschew evil. Decisively, I shove all of my books into my backpack. She was being woken with a soft shove on her shoulder. The ceremony retains an aura of mystery. A briefcase bulging with documents. He gritted his teeth in the telltale bulge of a concealed weapon. Drugs and drug paraphernalia that had been discovered on the premises. A bulge in the birth rate. I felt I was a detestable person and I hated myself and had all the feelings of failure. The veins in his neck bulged. There is a difference between hating something and detesting it. The specter of nuclear holocaust. There is a growing consensus that the current regime has failed. To banish the spectre of Vladimir Putin. Manchester suffers a soggy downpour. There was a faint aura of disinfectant. These are issues that should be at the forefront of political discourse. Football coaching is a chancy business. Some very recent examples will suffice to persuade us that piety and knavery are incompatible. Typos. A typographical error. He was feeling chipper. Dear Diary, today I fell in love. This process destroys the germ and prevents the kernel from sprouting. Vitriolic attacks on the politicians. He began experimenting with a rudimentary operating system kernel. He purchased a ranch, farm. The solution is always within the kernel of the problem itself. Major bleeding necessitating transfusions. Our main goals were to improve uptime and understand the causes for downtime. Unruly passenger, says Baba jokingly. Pure demented conjecture. Bran are milled out of the wheat kernel. She was demented with worry, dementia. Nutritionally, oats are similar to whole wheat. A direct steam-driven flour mill. But such cathartic vengeance would do nothing to curb the menace of transnational terrorism. Hard wheats are easily milled into white flour. Last week there was a horrendous electric storm. Probably the most spectacular storm I have ever seen in Pattaya. In the machine shop we mill and grind the castings. We got sulfur candles to fumigate the house. Gold and silver coins were milled in order to prevent unscrupulous persons from shaving off the edges. Produce regular ribbed markings on the edge of a coin, as a protection against illegal clipping. His patience suddenly exhausted. We have been through the mill, but it has been worth the fight. You could accrue considerable benefits if you design a tailored incentive scheme. A razor-thin majority. A booby-trapped drone. The water is transferred from gutters into black drums via garden hoses. A lopsided grin. I heard utensils scrape against the kitchenware. Get out of my sight. I pulled all-nighters to get this done. I have scrimped and saved to give you a good education. The malefactor. When women wed, they forfeited the property rights that they enjoyed as single women. A pretty odious character. As a reward she is allowed to choose her husband, who unwillingly obeys the king's order to wed her. A gentle sheen or soft glow. You don't need to be a football fanatic to watch a game. The luster of the Milky Way. The ridge formed a stark silhouette against the sky. A dissertation is a detailed discourse on a particular topic that provides a new perspective to a phenomenon. Pendant gardens. Hanging gardens of Babylon. Viper, a spiteful or treacherous person. The house was booby-trapped to blow up. He wrote plain English, punctuated by short pithy sentences. The grubby face of a young boy. The grubby business of selling arms, dirty. Flocks of tiny finches and other seed-eating birds swoop in to graze among the spent blooms. Grab the grubby apple from the ground. One of the raids today involved a swoop on a flat above a kebab shop. The mayhem that we create. I want to write a treatise on democracy. You need to get a hold of yourself. Piracy against the ships of a hostile nation was perfectly legal. Privateering, as it was called, was a lucrative industry. Sublime virtue. The billowing white sail on the mast seemed to blend in with the far-off clouds. A far-off country. We do not want to wait until the far-off, dim, and speculative future. By taking electricity to the far-off farms. Take up vaccination on a war footing. I have been approached by a company that wants to erect a telecommunications mast on my land. The city is not on a war footing. In an attempt to exculpate himself from any anthrax charges. It means putting economies on a war footing. There were a lot of crickets and birds swooping around from tree to tree, beginning to spook me out. Mystery solved in a record time. When birds swoop around en masse, how do they decide who does the steering? The cabinet immediately resigned en masse, in a group, all together. We are so aligned on this level. Did you pull an all-nighter? Our findings provide preliminary and highly tentative impressions. The coveted golden visa in UAE. Yet, while imperialism has generally withered, other forms of domination or hegemony have arisen. 4 men are standing trial. It is not a battle for territorial domination, ideological supremacy, or economic hegemony. We've been inseparable ever since. I entered the chapel late. I remember the kind usher who showed me discreetly to my seat. There was a rip in his sweatshirt, tear or cut. An usher at the cinema said the attendance had been better when the film was first released. They have ripped off £6.7 billion. The legislative districts are designed to protect the incumbent. Rip-offs of all the latest styles. The very idea of the present incumbent supporting a factory occupation is laughable. Antelope eating cantaloupe. If convicted, they'll have plenty of time to mull over their sins. Honey mustard dressing. Much to mull over as I consolidate the lessons I've learned about myself. Apple cider vinegar dressing. The sea does not split, nor does the earth swallow up the terrorists who assail us every day. He found his mother dozing by the fire. The end. Coming next. Session 64.